What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the altar again, and this time we are here with Mlny of Royal Thunder. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hell yeah, thanks for having me. I'm
And
happy to be here.
anytime, anytime. It's so awesome to have you here. Your new album, Rebuilding the Mountain, I gotta say, is definitely, in my opinion, the best Royal Thunder album we've gotten to date. It is just a fantastic album. But for people who haven't heard the full album yet and just the singles, do you feel that the first singles that we heard so far, The Knife and Fade, is a good representation of what this whole album is going to sound like, or is that just the tip of the iceberg?
Well, first of all, whoa, cool. Thanks for liking the album so much.
Of
That's
course.
awesome. Uh, it's I don't think it paints a picture of like what the album sounds like overall. I feel like there's a lot of different little styles within it. But yeah, it's a good start. I think it showcases that things are a little different. They're still the same, it's still us, but things have shifted. Little hint, couple of hints.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. And you led me perfectly into the next question. Did this just feel like you were picking up where you left off after Wick in a way, or did this almost feel like a new beginning, being that Wick was from 2017?
Oh hell no! It did not feel like a continuation of anything. It did feel like a new beginning, um, and just uncharted territories. Like just didn't really know where we were going, but just felt the connection to one another and just went with that. And you never know. You always get a little like, or I always get a little worried or scared that like when you go in, you're gonna. It's like, man, is this one gonna be like the plop album? Like, is this just gonna be like, fuck, what happened to Royal Thunder? And I always have that fear. So that's kind of where my head was. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know who we are. I don't know what the fuck. I felt so like lost, but it turned out to be a really good thing. So
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think you could tell for any fan of Royal Thunder, you'd be able to tell, like, if you played 30 seconds of a song, what will be off of CVI or Crooked Doors, Wick, or even, like, the Royal Thunder EP from 2010. I feel like everything you put out has its own little things that sort of make it stand out in a way.
cool, yeah.
Mm. Does it ever start off with a preconceived vision, or is your songwriting process very, like, improvised and more like on an experimental process?
Um, we weirdly don't like talk that much while we're creating. Um, it just kind of we don't go into it with like, all right, what are we trying to say? What are we trying to like put out there? We've just never done that, and I feel like if we did, it could be really cool. You never know, but
But when it comes to like kind of going back to the preconceived vision, because I've always thought that your music has a very experimental side to it in a way, going back to what I said, like you'd be able to tell what song will be off of which album. It's got to be a little bit easy to sort of try new things, right? It's not like you're sort of like confined to a specific style or a specific sound, right? Despite maybe
oh
people in
yeah,
the press maybe labeling you guys as stoner rock or stoner metal or whatever the hell that means.
yeah, whatever hell that means. That's right. I don't we don't really mind that. Like I I feel like we have a freedom creatively. I've always felt this way that I don't think I'm not saying in a pretentious way like we don't fit in any genre. We're just our own thing. Like, but we're doing our own thing, and wherever it falls, it falls. And none of that stuff really fucking matters. What matters is like, is this authentic? Is this coming from a place of truth? And do we believe it? And that's all we really care about. So whatever comes out, I hope there's just an honesty with it.
Well,
But I've always felt creative freedom.
yeah.
Like I don't, I don't really care if it sounds like anything. We just want to make something honest.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
I think that's why people resonate with your music. I think there's an honesty behind your music that, like, I feel like, there's some bands where maybe, like, they portray a character or they sort of, like, sing stuff that's more, like, I feel like, maybe sort of distant from what people feel in a way. But I feel like your music is reflective of both musically and lyrically of what people do feel on the inside.
Yeah, and I do think, I never want it to sound like, if it doesn't feel like this or that or look like this, then it's not good. Because there are, I mean, I fucking love a lot of bands that do what you're saying, about, getting into character, or like it could be a gimmick or whatever. That shit, there's a place for all kinds of music. I think that shit's really cool. But I think if we did it, it would not be cool. And we definitely, I don't know, I guess we're just a moodier band. From like Josh and I, we didn't grow up together, but when we were little kids, it would be summertime. And we discovered probably 15 years ago, we each had a picture of ourselves as little kids. And I was dressed as a witch, and I was walking around with an encyclopedia in July, casting spells on my neighborhood. And he was a vampire with a glass of Kool-Aid. So all that to say, I think there's just this weird, we've always hidden this weird, dark, kind of moody place. And maybe that's where that comes out in music, but that's a little bit going off on the rabbit trail. But
I love that rabbit trail. That's a concept album waiting to happen. The Witch and the Vampire, you should explore that story a little bit more.
Dude, speaking of vampires, my bandmates call me, and not because I'm a psychic vampire by any means, but they call me the psychic vampire whenever I have bad, cheesy ideas, because there was one time, I think it was during Wick, and they came in and I had a vocal line set up for this song. And I was really, I met this psychic vampire, and I was trying to sing about this person. And there's one part of the song where psychic vampire, and there's this weird rhythm going to it. And they're that is the cheesiest shit ever, dude. We can't use that.
That's a hit waiting to happen. That's a hit waiting to happen. I would say do it anyway.
Oh, it was terrible.
Sneak it on the album.
I was so proud of it. Yeah.
You never. But with that whole, I kind of wanted to get this question out of the way because it is probably the silliest question I have. But being categorized as the sort of stoner rock or stoner metal thing, I think it's super silly, only because I've gotten stoned listening to Emperor, and I've gotten stoned listening to Christina Aguilera before. So what is the concept of stoner metal? Is that within the riffs, you would say, or is that within my category for people who describe stoner bands, whether it be you guys or Baroness or Corrosion of Conformity? I call them St. Vitus bands. That's just my way of characterizing it now.
I love me some St. Vitus and some stoner, dude. Rock, whatever, all of it. To me, it's, that feeling when you get stoned, and this is purely my definition, but you get stoned and you're just what just happened? How long have I been standing here? Cool. Just that feeling, that to me is I think if you can get lost in it, and it kind of takes you into this meditative state, and it has this rhythm of time and space just kind of dissipate. I think that to me is stoner rock. And I think if you're listening to our older stuff, you could definitely call that stoner rock by way of those songs take sometimes an hour to get started, but they last a long time, and you can get lost in them. So maybe that's where that came into play. I don't know, but it's cool. If you love it and connect with it, then call it whatever.
Exactly. But that is a good point, because I feel whenever I've seen Royal Thunder numerous times, and whenever I listen to the album, it is almost kind of you're entering a state of trance. And I mean this as a compliment. There's times where I listen to a Royal Thunder album and I didn't even realize you move from one song to the next in a way. It is kind of getting lost in sort of an abyss of melody and distortion.
Cool. I like that. That's how I feel about Yob. I listen to Yob and I'm whoa, I feel I'm on this weird sled of fire. It's just and you're just going into icy territory. That band does the same thing to me.
Yeah. Oh my God. The last Yob album, that was the first time I remember in a long time listening to an album and having to pause it, because Our Raw Heart was such an emotional, I literally had to pause it because I was just I can't, it's too much to bear. And
it's amazing. Falling Leaves, dude. That fucking shit.
I know that on piano.
That lights me. Oh, fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That song lights me up. I'm like, what? Just cry. I can just cry. And every like leaf that's falling, I'm like, oh God, this is so beautiful.
Yep.
Hey, pretty cool.
Since 2018, I've listened to that album now, or that particular song, every time we go from summer into fall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, now we're just talking about y'all. Let's do that.
Yeah, right. Oh my God, we could go off on a tangent. Now, I've always admired your stage presence, the way that you're able to sing and play bass. I think that you have one of the best combinations of that, literally since I've seen with maybe Peter Steele in a way. I just think the way that you're able to sing and play bass is truly a really incredible stage presence. Depending on the instrument, do you express a different side of yourself with the bass versus the vocals, or being that they're still coming from you, they are expressing the same emotion and the same side of who you are?
Well, I don't know if I've ever thought about it like that, but I do feel like I kind of need my bass. I feel connected. I guess it does in some ways feel that way. Like they're one. They both, I do try to express myself on the bass as I do vocally, but I mainly just try to get the fuck out of the way because none of it is really, and it's going to sound weird, but none of it's really like me or mine anyway in that moment. It's like, it's ours. It's like for everybody. I think music is something that just, whether it's floating around or drops down, it like comes through you. It's a form of expression that comes through you. And so, yeah, I feel connected to it, but also disconnected in a lot of good ways.
I love that. And because, being that a bass has both, in the world of rock, we've all seen our fair share of bass player memes and, terrible jokes here and there. But
I love
being that it has both an emphasis on rhythm and melody at the same time, it is a very important instrument in a way. And I was always wondering because you have to like focus on that, there's really no room for error on the bass. So I'm just find it unique that you're able to kind of incorporate that really heavy rhythm, but also bring in a serenading melody within your voice. It almost seems like you're bringing two opposite entities into one.
Well, cool. I hope I can do that for as long as I'm here. Yeah, I don't. Man, it's so weird to think of. Do you play music?
I play piano, yeah.
Well, yeah, you told me that. But so if you like, I don't know if you think about it, but I just try not to think about it because I'm telling you, and I'm not ashamed at all. But like someone will be like, "Oh, play this whatever, this chord on your bass." And I'm like, can you just like point to which one that I don't know what A is. I don't know what E is. I mean, I could take the time, but I just don't. I'm an oral learner. I've always played by ear, and I don't know. I guess that's a good thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm too squirrely brained sometimes not so much these days, but I have a tendency if I get in my head, I'm just like, I'll mess it all up.
I think you bring the artistic entity everywhere you go. And I think that's, is it fair to say it's more like a muscle memory or a movement that you focus on more? So it's not like you're thinking of key of this or chord of that or whatever the hell that means.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't imagine throwing that into the mix, man. That would suck. Think while you're doing that stuff. Yeah. Excuse me.
When it comes to the lyrical aspect of Royal Thunder, has there ever been a time where a lyrical idea maybe helped influence the music in a way, or have you always needed the music before you came up with the lyrics?
I've needed the music. In the past, the music created the lyrics. On this last album, I had some like for instance, there's a song called "Now Here, Nowhere." Now I am here, but nowhere. But there were at the very end, there's like like on the outro, I came up with that melody and those lyrics, and then all the rest. It was like the end of the song created the beginning of the song. And I don't know why, but I wrote a lot of the vocal melodies after we put the instrumental parts down. I spent a lot of time with the melodies, and the lyrics came I was like waiting for them. I'm like, all right, all right, all right. What are we trying to say here? But that was kind of weird because normally I would do the lyrics and then turn them into melodies. But
Does it always come from an internal source? Is it always coming from an own personal emotional aspect, or is maybe like observation and sort of looking out into the world part of your artistic creation? And the lyrics do come from an external source.
lyrics come. I, I s- I sit there and I kind of ask every song like, all right, what do you want to conjure up? Like, what do you want to bring to the surface? Where are you trying to get something out of me, or trying to get something out for someone else? Or it's always like, it's for everybody. But, um, and sometimes, actually, a lot of the times, it's things to come that I don't yet understand, but somewhere maybe in my subconscious mind or somewhere else, I'm processing something or crossing over into a new phase. A lot of times that happened on CDI like a lot. My father passed away on Crooked Doors, and I remember on CDI singing about it, and I didn't quite understand what I was talking about, but there was a person that I had never met that was involved, and all that to say, I don't want to get too lost on it, but I feel like a lot of it is I just try to take in whatever is maybe trying to come at me and come out. So, and I mentioned like, several different ways that can happen, but
If you don't mind
yeah,
me if you don't mind me asking, was CVI almost like a premonition in a way in that regard?
yeah, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit, but because there is, I believe that when you are truly emotionally invested in something and giving it all of your energy and hooking yourself into it, you it gains momentum and you give it power. You can give anything power. You can create anything, and I think coming out of that was a time where we were coming out of a Christian cult, came out of it, but first time talking about it, and the experiences that I had, but the things that were coming, I didn't see them, but I like sitting back and listening and trying to understand a song. It's like it it's almost like advice or something coming from somewhere else. I don't know if I'm making sense. I probably sound.
I'm enjoying every word that you're telling me right now because I feel like it is like a really inspirational what you're saying, because the way that emotion, whether it's internal or external, I'm really glad you brought this up because I've always said that when emotions are the fuel to your fire in a way,
Mhm.
sometimes it's great to have that, but sometimes artists can become victims of their own product in that regard, where like you get so lost in the chaotic aspect of emotion, it makes it sort of like hard to control the art in a way. Is there almost kind of like, has there ever been a moment where maybe like you were forced to kind of like restrain yourself in a way to in order to like make the song not completely sound like total chaos?
Um, it feels like it's like controlled chaos because I go with it. I try not to resist it. I'm like, all right, this is pretty. I don't really understand this, but I'm gonna go with it. But yeah, it doesn't feel like chaos to me if I just go along, and I definitely I tried to resist on rebuilding the mountain. I definitely tried to resist because that was talking a lot about internal warfare, like where I really have wanted to be for years in my life, and I wanted it, but there was this sliver of me that maybe didn't believe that I could be there, or maybe didn't really want to completely let go to avoid, pain of loss, because I fucking hate loss. Like, I mean, who loves it? I'm sure somebody does. But I think this rebuilding the mountain is like a fear of going through the process of grief and mourning a, a person, that being my old self, my old behavior, like mourning that I was a little afraid of who that was, what that would look like. Turns out, fucking best decision I ever made was loving myself and taking care of myself. But I sure as shit didn't want to.
I mean, discomfort, unfortunately, it's like like the famous saying, when we are at our worst, art is at its best. I think when we are at the most uncomfortable is when we also, like, it leads to the greatest results. Discomfort, I've always said comfort is one of the most dangerous things for an artist.
Yeah. Actually, what's kind of cool is I was like, man, now that I'm feeling comfortable, it's kind of uncomfortable moving forward, like creating. I'm like, that's a little uncomfortable being comfortable. And like, what the fuck's gonna come out of that? Something will. Something always does. I'm learning, a lot of my self doubt and anxiety and fear and stuff like that. I just like, dude, I really could just stop myself a little sooner and not give in to feeling all those things and believing them. I can stop that and tell myself, no, things are going to be cool. So, that gives me hope for moving forward, creating and feeling comfortable, being uncomfortable about that. Something cool is going to happen.
I can't wait to see what comes out of it.
Me too.
Yeah. And I have two more questions for you. We'll get the most difficult question out of the way. How do you know when a song is finished?
Oh man, it's never really finished because you play it live, and then it's like totally different beast. I think it just evolves over time. Like, we have songs that we've been playing from the beginning. Like, we were practicing yesterday morning, and there were a couple songs from like our EP. I was like, hey, I'm gonna switch these up. Like, I just kind of want to sing it a little different. I'm gonna sing the same words, but I'm gonna kind of shave some things down or change the melody, or like, let's change these chords. So it's never really finished. But as far as like sitting down in the studio making an album, there is a point where you just have to, like, when you sit there and you're like, all right, it's in the sweet spot, it's ready to go. You could keep layering and layering and layering, and it changes things. But you just gotta kind of know when it's time to call it. Just be like, the baby's here. Push it out.
Well, I mean, and also because you mentioned playing live, is there at all like a similar energy to playing live as there is with songwriting, or are they almost two completely separate arts? And do you feel that when a song is live and when people do hear the song and they have their own interpretation and their own experience with it, that maybe adds another layer of meaning to the music as well?
Oh, that's a cool question. I think they're totally different. I think being in the studio and playing live are nothing alike. Hi, Pinky. Hi, Sarah. Hi. Sorry, I got a little distracted by cute little people.
No, it's all good.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, those experiences live in the studio, totally different. And then, yeah, there's a whole nother layer of when people in the crowd are experiencing it, or we're experiencing it together. That feels like a special little thing. I like to, there's certain songs that I have like a chance to get out and just like get in the crowd. So I've done that, maybe I've done that, like, before the pandemic, I was doing that. It felt so good to just like drop in and like hang out with everybody, and because it is a different experience. I don't get to do this in the studio, I don't get to do this on stage, and I don't get to do this at band practice, but to be there with everyone just playing and singing from the floor that's my favorite part, actually. I wish I could just play shows like that all the time.
That would be amazing.
Have people like hold some chords and I'll strum and then pass the microphone. That shit's cool.
That's amazing. Maybe you could write a song on stage. That could be an experiment. Like you do a tour and like with every show you get one step closer to completing the song. And then by the end of the tour you have a full song that you didn't have before.
Yeah, and a fucking flash mob.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Pyrotechnics.
That'd be amazing. So
Yeah, that's the psychic vampires thing coming out that my bandmates like. That idea is cheesy.
you
I
gotta
think it's
get Josh and Evan on the phone. I'll tell them that you need to make that idea happen. So
yeah. I want to show where it rains blood too, blood and snow.
there you go.
See, that's why I'm not in charge of that shit, man.
Maybe though. I think you got some great ideas. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. Such an awesome conversation to start this weekend off. Is there just anything else with Royal Thunder you'd like to promote with the release of Rebuilding the Mountain in terms of shows or anything else we could be expecting that you're allowed to say, of course, at this time?
Yeah. Well, other than that, tour coming up in July, there's stuff in the works. And I think Evan's going to be doing, which is not like album related, but I think Evan's going to be our drummer is going to be doing Zoom lessons. He's a fucking badass. So,
Oh, sweet.
Maybe you can learn some new Royal Thunder songs or whatever with him. He's truly a badass. He's a goofball too. So.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
But yeah, there's things are moving along.
Can't wait.
And cool.
Yeah.
Me too.
But
Well, thank you for your time, dude. I appreciate it. And sick background.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Might
you.
be the best one. Might be the best one I've seen yet.
I'm honored. I like how I have the altar here and you're surrounded by nature in the background. I think this is this is one of the best Zoom conferences ever. But thank you so much, everybody. Mlny of Royal Thunder. Be sure to check out Rebuilding the Mountain coming out on June via Spine Farm. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.